Merry meet. This episode is all about meditation. So, when most people think about meditation, they imagine sitting upright, straight spine, the mind calm and placid like the stillness of the surface of a lake. And while for some people this meditative technique works, for others it doesn't. And it leads them to believe that meditation either isn't for them or they're not good at it. But the reality is that this is only one form of meditation. So if you've ever had trouble meditating in the past or at any time, this episode's for you. If you are fairly good at meditating, stick around because I'm going to share some techniques that you may have never thought about to get you into a meditative state. So, welcome. I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin. Good evening. I see some people are here. Hi, Diane. So if you're here joining me live, you can always leave questions and comments in the feed, and I'm going to get all to those at the very end. And if you have sent me a question already, I've got that one ready to go, and I'm going to be giving some answers at the very end of the episode. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in right now, and we are going to talk about different forms of meditation. Now, the thing about meditation, like I said in the beginning, is there is this idea of what the meditative state should be. And sometimes our perceptions and our ideas about things will color our ability or inability to do them, or our ability to feel like we've done them well. So if we're able to shift our minds, we can look at this from a different perspective and perhaps find techniques that work better for us or better for us at a certain time. So it's like anything. We just need to find the right way that works for us. So take, for example, exercise. So if people say they hate exercise, it's usually that they just haven't found the form that they like. I was a runner who hated running. I just hated it. And that kind of led me to really not like exercise. I did it because I knew it made me physically happier, my body felt better, but I'd never really found the form that I liked until I found mountain hiking. And I fell in love, and now exercise is something that I am passionate about, and I always want to go out hiking. So the same thing goes for meditation. Now, the thing that's very interesting about our ideas about meditation are where they come from. So if we look at like yoga, for example, and I'm going to kind of get back to meditation in a moment, but I'm going to take us on a little segue through yoga to give this as an example. So in the West, we think, when we hear the word yoga, we think of poses flowing through these movements, and this really is more of a Western view of yoga. In this Western view, we think of it as fitness. Sometimes if we're in the right kind of yoga classes, it will be about mindfulness and stillness and calmness, but a lot of times it's about keeping the body healthy. And the reality is that yoga asana, that is the word for movement, isn't the whole picture of yoga. In fact, yoga is an entire system of 8 steps that lead ultimately to connection to the divine, to the universe, enlightenment, bliss, whatever you want to call it. That movement is only one step along the way. And so if we think of the yoga as having this goal of physical wellness or physical fitness, we're kind of missing the end goal. That's right. It's just one aspect along the way. Now, meditation is a similar thing. Meditation, in fact, is one of those 8 limbs of yoga. And in fact, it's the one right before communion with the divine, connection to the universe, expansion outwards. And so while it is true that one result of meditation is a clear and peaceful state, it isn't the end goal, at least from that system. So I think as witches, we can learn a lot about this. It's because if we think that meditation is supposed to be about clearing our mind, and we can't do that, then we think we can't meditate, and we think that we failed at this and we're not good at it. But if instead we shift that focus into meditation being as a witch, as an empath, as a spiritually connected person, if we think of the meditation as having a goal of connecting outward into the universe, well, we can do that in a lot of different ways. And there are a lot of different forms of meditation, as we're going to see tonight. Hello, everybody. I see there's a lot of people joining. Um, all right, so I am going to start by talking about some of the more traditional meditative techniques, and then after that, I'm going to move into some of the more non-traditional ones. So I promise you, anybody who's here, there is a technique that will work for you. But just to kind of keep in mind as we're going through this, our goal here is not just that calm mind. Our goal is more that connecting to the universe where we get those aha moments, those cosmic downloads, those messages from the universe and the divine inspiration that we're looking for. If we look at it this way, then we have more of an open expansion in our own perception of what meditation is. So let's start with these most common techniques. So most techniques of meditation, they fall into four categories. And pretty much everything I'm going to talk about tonight falls into one of these four categories or sometimes overlaps into one or more of them. So these categories are concentrative meditation, open awareness, mindfulness meditation, and then guided meditation, which sometimes people will call journeying. So, in concentrative meditation, the goal is a single pointed focus. So, these first two kind of meditation techniques is sort of what in the West we think of as meditation. So, there is an object, in this case, perhaps a sound, an image, a candle flame. We're going to talk more about candle gazing later as a technique for meditation. And the mind is trained to consistently come back to this one thing over and over and over again. Mantra meditation falls into this category. So anything where there is a one pointed focus. Now I'm going to talk about all of these different facets of it in a bit, but just know so that guided, not guided, concentrative meditation is this first kind, bringing our focus back to that one thing. Now, the second kind of meditation is called open awareness. And this objective is rather than bringing the mind to one single focus, it's almost like the opposite. It's opening the mind up to expansiveness. Now here, it's almost like you think of the analogy of like a spacious sky. So the mind as a spacious sky. And over time, we develop a greater capacity to be present whenever we are in this state. Now, Zen meditation is probably the most used form of open awareness. Now, in Zen meditation, it's more like a counting meditation. So you get into a relaxed state and then you begin to count from 0 to 10 very slowly. And then you count from 10 back down to 0 again very slowly. And if at any point during that the mind begins to wander off into perhaps the minutia of the day, what you do is you gently acknowledge it. So acknowledge the thought, and then you dismiss it, release it, and then you just start the count over. So it goes back to 0, 1, 2, and so on. Now, the idea behind this is that the thoughts are creating like waves. So if you think of the mind as a lake, like I talked about that metaphor earlier, and you throw pebbles into it or the wind comes and it blows it, it's going to create these ripples on the surface of the lake that make it hard to see what's underneath it. So the idea is that when the mind gets stilled in this way, we can see more clearly and therefore we can connect more to the divine truth. Now this is really a form of meditation that comes out of the East and is much more connected to that end goal. So the goal isn't to still the mind. The end goal isn't to still the mind. That's just a step along the way. The goal is to connect to the divine so that we can open up, we can receive the messages, the insights, the aha moments. So now this form of meditation, it doesn't work for everyone. This is the kind of meditation that we often think of as meditation. And that is what can lead us to think that we can't do it or we're not good at it. Now, like I said, this is like much more traditional form. So I, as a teacher in my day job, I work with students who mainly have different learning styles. I work with a lot of students who have ADD. Meditation is very, very hard for them. Students who have a lot of anxiety. So sometimes this form isn't really the best form to start with when you have a mind that is very difficult to still. So I'm going to talk about some more forms later that might be better if your mind just can't still like you need to in this open awareness type of meditation. So like I said, don't let this discourage you because there are other ways. Now, a third type of meditation is called mindfulness meditation. And there's a lot of different facets to this one. So it's sort of like a combination between concentrative and open awareness. Now, here we focus on thoughts, on feelings, on actions, maybe on the breath or sound. So we're focusing on something, but it's not as restrictive as that concentrative meditation. So it's not one single speck of something on the ground or a symbol or a candle flame. This is more like an action, a feeling, a sound. Your breath could be mindfulness. So again, not as narrow as concentrative. At the same time, there is this simultaneous awareness of everything that's going on around us. And this practice can really extend to like our everyday activities. So eating, walking, doing housework. So I find that when I vacuum, and I saw somebody else in the group had said this earlier, that when she vacuums, she finds that to be very meditative. I find it to be very meditative as well. And I don't even really concentrate much on it. I just do it. And the action of doing the vacuuming somehow kind of opens me up to that connection outside of myself. And I get all of this inspiration to the point that I have to stop what I'm doing and rush to write some of this down or I'm going to forget it. So, movement meditation, like the chore work, that falls into this as well. I'm going to talk a lot more later about moving meditation. So before I get there though, let's talk about the fourth type, which is called guided. So guided meditation is very popular in the West, and it can also be called journeying. I personally love this form of meditation. I teach it myself. And guided meditation is usually, at least in the beginning when you're starting out, you would be guided by a teacher or by a recording that basically talks you into some type of imaginal state where you visualize something or where you are hearing something. It could be using any of your senses. Now, one thing that I think can really help with systematic relaxation. So it's very useful in guided meditation or journeying, but any of those other forms that I talked about before can very much benefit from systematic relaxation. So what this is, before the meditation begins, before you get into whatever you're doing, you are systematically relaxed. And so what this means is usually body parts, you're instructed to tighten body parts up very, very tight, get very tense in the body, and then release them. And sometimes the practice can go on for 10 or 15 minutes. Sometimes you can do a very shortened version of it, like 2 to 5 minutes in the beginning, but can be very helpful for people, especially those with PTSD, with anxiety, or those who just really can't find that stillness. So what I usually recommend is if people are having trouble with that more traditional type of meditation and they want to try to do it, so perhaps they don't necessarily want to move on to other forms, or they do want to try this. I often say try systematic relaxation, especially if you've never tried it before, and you do have to be serious about it and consistent about it. And over time, you actually may find that when you do the systematic relaxation, so that tightening and then that releasing, that tightening and releasing, that you will naturally fall into that meditative state. Now, it may not happen the first time, it may not happen the fifth time, it may not happen the 10th time, but over time it can happen. So it is one thought of something you can try. Now, back to that journeying meditation, I will say that if you want to try journeying, there are a lot of videos all over the place. So they're all over YouTube. I personally really like Insight Timer. There is a free version of it that has thousands of meditations, and you can search in there. There's stuff about like geared more towards witches. There are so many different meditations in there that you could try. And for guided meditation, I think the voice is very important. If you don't like the person's voice, don't even get past the first couple of seconds. Just turn it off and find somebody else, because you need a voice that will be able to take you down enough, relax you enough to get into that. All right, so I'm going to talk about alternative forms of meditation now. So this is the part that people are waiting for, I know, because I know there's a lot of people here who have trouble with these more traditional forms. So the first form I'm going to talk about is walking meditation. I think this is a fantastic type of meditation to try, and it's unlike anything you've probably done before. It's been practiced for millennia by people, and if you think about the history of the human race and think about different cultures and different religions, there's often this walking journey that people take to the holy sites. So, for example, those in England traveled by foot to Canterbury. The Muslims traveled across the Sahara Desert and still continue to do a trek to Mecca. Tibetans made circular paths through the mountains that eventually led to Shiva's birthplace. So, this is not new, but it's also not your typical walking. So sometimes people say, I already go for a daily walk or several times a week. And while that's great, that is not exactly what we're talking about here. So, in walking meditation, you can do this either indoors or outdoors, and you really only need a small amount of space. So, about the space it would take you to walk 10 to 20 steps. It's really up to you. So, inside a hallway, if you have a nice long hallway, works very well. Just outside on the sidewalk in your backyard, you just need a space where you can pace 10 to 20 steps. What you do want, though, is you want a space that doesn't have to be quiet, completely quiet, so you can go outside, but it does need to be a place where you won't be distracted. And if you are self conscious, like many of us are, you're going to want to choose a space where you are not going to be watched, okay? Because it looks kind of weird. So, like I said, this is not like your normal, you're not going on a walk after dinner. So what you do is you start in one spot and you walk for 10 to 20 paces. And it's up to you how you walk. Some people put their arms behind their backs, others just walk normally. And what you are doing, you're walking at a slightly slower pace than normal, one foot in front of the other. And when you get to the end of that 10 or 20 steps, you turn back around and then you head the other way. And during this time, your mind may wander. What you're really trying to do is keep your attention just simply on the walking, on your steps. You can even look down, so make sure it's like a safe place. You're not going to wander into traffic, but looking down at your feet and just focusing on the action of walking. Now, your mind may wander, and you just gently guide it back to the act of walking. Again, do this countless times. So, like I said, it could take, in those other forms, you know, what I said with the systematic relaxation, it could take 10, 15 times before you really kind of get it. The same goes for this. It's unfortunately not something like a lot of this stuff that really is going to elevate us spiritually, emotionally. It's not something that just like we do it once and we've got it. It can take a lot of practice. That's why we call it practice, right? So do this countless times. And I suggest starting with 5 minutes, see how it goes. You can work up to 10 or 15 minutes if you'd like. And many people benefit greatly from this form of meditation. Now, there are other forms of movement meditation that are popular as well. So it doesn't just have to be this like linear walking. So for example, there is labyrinth walking. If you have a nice big backyard, you can actually build yourself a labyrinth. So it's really just a spiral. It can be just a spiral that goes into the center. It's not like a maze. Sometimes we think mazes and labyrinths are the same thing. Well, mazes are meant for us to get lost, and it takes effort to get out of them. A labyrinth is simply a meditative journey into a center point, which is supposed to represent us journeying into the underworld, into the unconscious. This is exactly what we want, the end goal, because down in that unconscious is where we can get all those messages, connect to everything. So you journey into the center and then you kind of walk right back out. And there are some places where they're actually built. You can find them, you can go to them, so you don't have to necessarily build your own. In LA here, we have a labyrinth up at the Forest Lawn Cemetery. And so you can look up and see if there's any local to you. I know there's one in Arizona near Quartzsite. I know they're all over the place. So just Google labyrinths near you and see if you can find one. If it's one that you're able to go to and they'll allow visitors, try this kind of meditation. So another form of movement meditation is intuitive movement or you could also kind of extend this to intuitive dance, especially if we're going to put on music. So here, it's just you allowing yourself to move. Allow yourself to move in the way that your body asks you to. So there's no conscious control of the body. Now, you do have to get into a relaxed state in order to do it. Maybe, maybe not. You could just, if you're not feeling relaxed, just see if you could listen to your body. What movement would it like to make? Is it with your hands? Is it with your legs? You can just be swaying back and forth. Some people like to turn on the music, close their eyes. Again, I would, if you're, don't want to be watched, you're a little self-conscious like I am, I would close the door and just then you can really let loose because you really want to be able to let go and get into this in order to benefit from it the most. Now, what I will say with movement meditation especially is that it can bring up a lot of emotions sometimes. And this has to do with the fact that when we move, especially when we move intuitively, which is the way the body needs to move, not the way that we're kind of instructing it to or someone outside teacher is instructing it, but the way it naturally wants to move, it will let go of energy that was stuck in certain places. And when that happens, there can be a big emotional release. And you may not even know what that's about, and that's okay. It's not uncommon to cry, to weep in the middle of it as you let go of this energy. So there's a lot of benefits to this kind of intuitive movement meditation. So I highly suggest you try it, especially if you're someone who really has found that kind of seated or still meditation doesn't work for you. Another type of meditation is a form of concentrated meditation. This is called candle gazing. And in candle gazing, you focus on a candle flame. So I usually say, turn down the lights. I put a little ambient, like I have a salt lamp back here. I usually turn that on for a little ambiance in the room. And then you want to place the candle so it's about eye level with you. And then you just sort of let your eyes go and you just gaze at the candle. Now, over time, you may only be able to do it, 10, 20 seconds at first. If you have to close your eyes and kind of relax them and then open it back up again, do that as many times as you need to. And you may find that this is a type of meditation that you really like. I will do a full episode on candle gazing soon because there's a lot more I'd like to talk about with it. And we don't have a lot of time to spend on the candle gazing, but just know that is a form that you can use that is very good, especially if that kind of closing your eyes and just kind of letting the mind open up isn't working for you. Another form is mantra meditation. I would say this is also concentrative, but here you are uttering syllables or words. And this can really help those who have difficulty focusing or clearing the mind. So they find that the mantra helps them kind of just stay on track. So it's sort of hard to have the mind speaking at the same time that the mantra is going for some people. And so there are a lot of great mantras. You can look them up. There are some, anything that's in English is usually, I wouldn't really call it a mantra. In the most traditional form, it's more like an affirmation. You could certainly use those, but you can also find the actual Sanskrit mantras. One I really love is Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, and I will drop that in the comments so people can see how it's spelled. It's basically a mantra that, if you want to look at it as honoring a deity, it honors the deity Ganesha, who is the guardian of the root chakra. And it also, though, is a mantra that can simply just remove obstacles. So you don't have to be working with that deity to use this mantra. It simply like opens the road, clears the passage for us to move forward. So what I love about the mantra meditation is that not only is it a form of meditation that helps us connect out to the universe, out to the divine, opens us up to those messages, but at the same time, I think of mantras as spells or incantations. These have been repeated for thousands of years, some of them. And it's like you're doing a little spell while you're meditating. That's what I love about it as a witch. Coloring is also a really good form of meditation. If you never tried it, you could get some of those adult coloring books. You can just download the pages on the internet and just see. Sometimes there's beautiful patterns that you can color, and you just let your mind go as you do that. So that's another form you can try. And then there is also forms called yantra, which is where you stare at a special pattern that has been made. Now, one of the things I'm going to share here, just and then I'm going to get into the Q&A, is the tattwa cards. So this is not necessarily yantra. Yantra does come from the east, and tattwa may come from the east too. I'm actually probably do an episode on the tattva cards too at some point. So the tattva cards are these symbol cards, and they're all just shapes, and each of them symbolizes different elements. So for example, this one is water, and then there are different ones that, let me see if we've got, they will put certain ones inside. So like this one is got the blue with the red triangle inside. So this is water and fire. And so you could actually get a deck of these on Amazon, and you can use them to just meditate on. And there's a little book that comes with them. It tells you a little bit more of the meanings of the cards. Our coven actually, I bought the deck, and then we all got cardstock and markers and made them one night at a coven meeting. So it can be a little fun project too to just make them. If you go online, you can also find the whole entire set of them, just images, and then just make yourself your own set. So that's something interesting to try. All right, so I am going to dive into the comments. Okay, and so first of all, I have some people who sent me questions, so I'm going to start with those. But let me just see if there's any other questions on here too. So I noticed somebody, this is a quick question to answer. Someone asked what was the name of the app, and it's called Insight Timer. And if you're not on here anymore live, I will type that in there. I'll go back and answer all of these too. I see that Tommy asked, do the candle colors matter? That is up to you. When you're doing candle gazing, I usually do white. It's just because I have more of the white around, but you can definitely pick a different color. So for example, if you're trying to bring in a certain energy, like healing, right? You might use a brown candle or a green candle or something like that. So there isn't like anything that says you have to specifically use a certain color, but you can use a color that resonates with you for a certain intention if you'd like. Okay, so let me go through the questions that I have, and then I'm going to go through and see if there's any extra ones in the feed right here. Okay, so this first question, I just went in order from the ones that I got. This is from Angela. So Angela said, what is the best type of meditation for a busy mind? And there are a couple of other people who kind of had similar questions about this and issues with that busy kind of mind that they couldn't calm. So this is questions really for more than just Angela. So my best answer here is the type that will calm your mind is the best type that will calm your mind, which isn't much of an answer. But what it means is that it's through trial and error, through experimentation, you will find the form that works best for you. I had this perception that you had to sit straight up like this in order to meditate. And it really got in my way for many years because I had a really bad back. And before I strengthened it through my own yoga practice, I could not sit up like this. And then I just thought I just couldn't really meditate. And then I found a teacher who said, all you got to do is have a spine straight. That means you can lie down. So I started doing that, and all of a sudden everything changed for me. I was able to meditate in a much better way. But some people find that when they lay down, they fall asleep. So that meditation's probably not going to work for them. So really the type of meditation that's for you is going to be the one that works best for you through trial and error. Try several different forms that I said here in the video. But I have a couple of other things I wanted to say to you. So one thing is that you may find that if you can warm up with something before the meditation, so maybe some breath work, some kind of calming breath work, maybe mantras like I talked about. So find a mantra, kind of Google them, and or the one I gave earlier, and try that and see, because those things are actually meant to still the mind, and then you do the meditation. So in that 8 limbs of yoga, which is where meditation is, meditation didn't start here in the West. It started in the East, and in most cases, not just necessarily in that yogic system. It developed in other places as well. But it never was a standalone practice. It came in succession with other practices. And always before it, there was some kind of movement, there was some kind of breath work, there was some kind of taking away of the sensory experiences around you before you got into the meditation. So in the West, we think we just like dump ourselves into this meditation and we should be able to do it. And that's not always the case for us. So you can warm up with anything you want. The other thing that I was going to mention to you, and this goes for a couple of other people who said they couldn't really calm the mind, is that you can consider like herbal remedies that will calm the mind. So like lemon balm, I'm going to talk about that one a lot. Now, just I'm going to say this, I am not a certified herbalist. Lemon balm tends to be pretty safe for everybody, so I don't feel bad saying this. You can get it in a tincture form at Sprouts. We have that out here. I don't know if you have it in other places, but in a more natural food store or on Amazon, lemon balm can be very calming for the mind. And another thing is theanine, which is an amino acid, which again is safe for most people. And you can get it at most natural food stores online, and it can be really very much calming for the mind. Another one is passion flower. These can be good also for people with PTSD who are finding they can't really relax as well either. Now, if you want to like get into more deeper into that herbalism, I would definitely consult a certified herbalist, a naturopath, somebody who's really studies this. But those would be a few that I know are safe for most people. And many people actually find good results from them. And then for you, you may find that your mind just can't still, even with everything else. And you may find that that movement meditation works a little better for you. So try that. The walking meditation. If you can find a labyrinth, just intuitive movement, just swaying, closing your eyes and swaying back and forth. Moving the head, just let the body guide you. And you may find that that works really well for you. And then after a while, you can come back to that more traditional, concentrative, or open awareness kind of meditation. So I think that also some of the things I'm going to say in some of the other people's questions might resonate with you as well. So I'm going to move on now to Nancy. Nancy has kind of a similar question. She said, what is best for a busy day? And what is the best mood to be in? So I say any mood is the right mood to be in. You can meditate at any point, at any time in your day, and you can tailor your practice to your mood. So for example, if your mood is in a calmer state at that time, you might be better at that open awareness or that concentrated meditation, more that traditional sitting or lying down meditation. But if you find your mind is kind of agitated, then the movement meditation might work better for you on that day. So really checking in, where am I at right now? And trying that kind of meditation, trying to meet yourself. I always say kind of meet yourself where you are rather than trying to fit yourself into these other kind of holes of what we think meditation should be. And again, like my answer for Angela, that I gave for Angela would probably be very similar for you, but kind of adding on that idea of like just kind of meet yourself where you are. Find your mood of that day and pick a type of meditation that kind of fits that mood. Dawn, she had a question. She talked about being hyper vigilant due to PTSD. I hear this a lot. And she said, every little sound pulls me out. It gets very frustrating. So, one of the things I would ask about PTSD is if the having the eyes closed is working for you or not. So sometimes people who have had a lot of trauma find that having the eyes closed and losing what's around them is good. And other people find that having the eyes closed actually sets them into more of that kind of PTSD state. Okay, so if you think that's you, then I would suggest trying to form, at least in the beginning, that doesn't have you closing your eyes. And it could be that, with the eyes closed, you're just always on guard, like you said. But if you have the eyes open, you may feel a little bit more relaxed about what you're doing. So that would be my first question to ask you. And then if that's the case, if you think that is the case, try a form with them open, like that yantra or the tattwa cards meditation, candle gazing, the walking meditation, coloring, and then I would also say with anybody with PTSD, I would try that systematic relaxation beforehand and see if that works. If you can get your body like, because really what we need to do is if we're so hyper vigilant, it just means that our central nervous system is too on alert. It's on too much of an alert for where we really are. There isn't really danger in your room when you're meditating, or if you're sitting outside, but your mind kind of thinks that there is. So if we can help bring it down a little bit, then that can help. So I would try that. So I can get through everybody. I'm going to move on to Mary. So she said, "Why is it so hard?" It's a question that a lot of people ask. She said, "I've got 100 thoughts nonstop, despite breathing techniques to ground and center, music playing in an open tab somewhere. If I relax at all, I totally zonk out." And then she even went on to say that she's realized that you can actually sleep standing up, is what she's found. So, all right. So for you and anybody who's experiencing this problem, I would ask, I would say, though sleep is not the goal of meditation, sometimes it is exactly what you need. So if your body cannot stay awake during meditation, I would seriously look at what's going on in your sleep, in your kind of downtime, your self-care, because what it may be is that you need rest more than you need meditation. So the way this works is that our bodies are built to survive, and there are certain things that like we need in order to survive, and there's certain things that we don't. We don't need meditation to survive, but we do need sleep. So your body is going to choose sleep over that meditation, connecting to the universe. And so you might want to consider what's going on with your sleep. That would be my first thing. And I think you had also mentioned you needing a vacation and more sleep. So I think you know this. I think it's going to resonate with you a little bit. But if you do want to do the meditation anyway, I would just recommend not doing meditation where you're staying still. It's going to be hard to sleep when you're moving. So you could try the movement meditation, walking meditation, something like that. As far as you talking about the hundreds of thoughts, sometimes what happens to us is that we try very, very hard to push our thoughts away, and what we resist persists. So if we put too much like constriction in to get rid of it, it's actually going to make it come in more, and that's not what we want. We want to get rid of the thoughts, right? Not increase them. So what you can do is instead is try a more relaxed way of kind of getting the thoughts to go away. So I like to imagine when I'm trying to meditate or sleep and they won't let me be, imagine putting them all up in a box, and I even see like little like icons of like that represent, or symbols that represent each of the thoughts or the people that they're about, and I put them all in this big box and in my mind, and then tie it up with a bow and put it at the very top of the closet. And I just tell myself, I'm going to make a deal with myself. I need 20 minutes to meditate. I need 7 hours to sleep, or 6 hours, or whatever it is, and those thoughts are going to stay in that box, and I'll go take that box down tomorrow. And sometimes what you find is that you won't take the box down tomorrow. Sometimes it works. Now you may need to do this over and over and over again. I've had to do this so many times when I couldn't sleep. I would just keep doing it. Once the thoughts come back in, put them back in the box, tie it up, put it back on a shelf, and then the thoughts come in again. Do it again. Do it over and over and over and see if it helps. But another thing could be like what I mentioned earlier, is where you simply, rather than resist them or push them away, you acknowledge them and then let them go. And my computer is about to die. So hold on a second. I need to get a charger. 1 second. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. This happened to me once before, and then we just lost the feed. So there we go. We're good. All right. So I hope that helps for Mary. So next up, I got a couple more questions, and I'm looking at the feed. Danielle, she said that it feels to her that when she wants to meditate, she ends up connecting with anyone who wants to talk to her. And then I asked her to elaborate because I suspected that she meant like spirits, voices, and she said yes. So, what I would mention here is that if she also mentioned animal spirits and things like that. And by the way, Danielle, if you're live here too, I didn't get a chance to look at your private message yet, but I will get to that. So what I would do is I would ask the spirits, the voices, whatever it is, the messages coming in, what they need from you. It could simply be, and this is going to be an answer kind of similar to what I'm going to say to Diane and Dawn. Kind of had a similar question about too many voices, too much coming in at once. Ask them what they need from you. Sometimes it simply is that we are too open in the crown chakra. So I saw an intuitive reader once, and she said you're way too open in the crown chakra. And while I don't really, it doesn't bother me too much. Sometimes it does. Like if I really don't want all of it coming in or receiving, we're like too receptive to it. She said just try to close it. It doesn't need to be much. We don't want to close it much, but just like just think of it almost like a valve, right? And so right now it's like totally open and maybe it's like bulging. There's too much coming through. And just think about like kind of turning that valve and just like getting it to be a little bit more closed. And so I know it sounds simple, and but it really can be that simple. It's just kind of making that intention. Like I'm just going to close my crown chakra down just a little. You can even visualize it just closing just a little bit, so a little bit less comes in. Now you can also ask the spirits, the animal spirits, whatever's coming through, what do they want? Do they need something from you? And maybe they'll tell you, and maybe it's something you can do to kind of satisfy them, so they'll kind of let you be. And then the other thing you can do is just simply ask them to just settle down and be quiet while you try to concentrate. Now, if you've done that and that doesn't work, because I noticed a few of you kind of said I told them to be quiet and it didn't work, is try that practice of just tuning down the crown chakra just a little bit, like an antenna too. We're just going to turn it down, turn the volume down just a little bit. So that would be my answer for that. And then if I didn't fully answer it, I'll get you can always ask me a little bit more. Julia said she wanted to know, how can you tell if you're an alpha? She said, I don't believe I ever really get there, or it's rare if I do. So here's the thing, it can be hard to tell unless we connect our brain up to a brainwave monitor. We honestly can't tell if we're in it or not. Maybe someday they'll have machines that we just all can have in the house so you could see which brainwave pattern you're in. But for now, we don't have that. So it can be hard to tell. And what I would suggest is that it just feels like a really relaxed state. And I kind of think of it as when you close your eyes and you're sort of like drifting off to sleep, that space kind of in between sleeping and wakefulness, that hypnagogic state is usually alpha. So if you're able to sort of achieve that, that's the feeling that we're kind of looking for when we're meditating. But at the same time, what I wanted to say is that it's really not, we make this big deal about alpha. I actually personally think that you're probably going into it and you're just not really, you just really don't know. If you can get into meditation, which from talking to you, I know that you can, then I think that you are achieving alpha. So just don't worry about it too much. Maybe you have other questions about meditation, but that one I wouldn't worry about too much. But if you do want to kind of feel alpha, just know it's that space right before sleep, right in between wakefulness and sleep is sort of what it feels like. Okay, I have one more question here, and then I'll look at the feed really quick. So Diane and then Dawn kind of added on. She had kind of a similar question. Diane said, how do I put into words messages I receive while meditating when I don't understand what is being said? I write down colors, images, numbers. The infinity symbol comes up a lot, but I hear words being spoken and it sounds like gibberish. Okay, so my first question to you is, why do you want to write down the words? So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, what do you want to do with them? Are you trying to get the messages that are coming through? Because my one thought is that if there's a lot of gibberish and a lot of noise coming through, I don't know if that's necessarily the unconscious talking. So the unconscious, I think, is the symbols that are coming through, the infinity symbol, the colors, the images. The unconscious doesn't really talk to us in words anyway. Now, sometimes when the messages come through from kind of like the divine or our spirit guides, then they come through in words, but the gibberish is probably just kind of noise. So like said with Danielle, I would suggest trying to just tune that down. Just put an intention out there. Like a lot of us who are very spiritual and have done this for a long time, our crown chakras are wide open. Like that intuitive told me. She's like, yours is like wide open. And while it doesn't bother us all the time, sometimes it does. So if the noise is too much, just see if you could just set that intention. I'm just going to close the crown just a little bit. Honestly, it's going to naturally open back up on its own, so you don't have to worry about blocking it or anything like that. You can also work with the crown chakra. So anybody who's got too much static and too much noise, that they think too many messages are coming through, I would work with the crown chakra and see if balancing that could help. Let me see. I think I had one more thought for you. Yeah, that was what I think I had written down for you. So if I didn't really answer the question, everybody can feel free to elaborate. I'm looking at the chat really quick here now. Okay, so we got the question about the app Insight Timer. Do the colors matter on the candles? No. Tommy said he was listening to the rain while listening to the lesson. See, listening to the rain, we didn't even talk about that. That is meditative too, is just listening to, that can be a form of concentrated meditation, in fact. The rain, ocean waves, the wind in the trees, anything that you, a sound that you find very peaceful, and it can be natural, like Tommy, who is actually listening to it outside, or it can be, you can get them on Insight Timer. You can just get those natural sounds to listen to. Danielle said she started painting again, which is great as a meditative thing. I think anything where we're painting, we're coloring, we're crafting. I don't, even people who do crochet, I don't know how to do crochet, but I've done some crafting, and I found that can be kind of meditative. Okay, Angela said, when I use guided meditation and relaxing my upper body, I get this painful tingling in my hands and arms along with anxiety. This doesn't happen in the lower body. Okay, so I wonder if you're doing the systematic relaxation, could be that, I don't know if you've got like a pinched nerve anywhere, because painfulness isn't usually good. So, if it's uncomfortable, like if we're doing yoga and we're kind of in a pose for too long and it's just like kind of mildly uncomfortable, that's something to push through. But if we're getting pain in something, it's probably not something that's good. So it could be that you're tightening up something that's sort of pinching a nerve, especially because you said it doesn't happen in your lower body. So for you, that systematic relaxation, maybe that doesn't work, or maybe you want to try to do it a little bit differently. Okay, the feed just like jumps on me, and then I can't see what's here. Okay. Yeah, Tommy said, yeah, color represents the energies you're drawing in. Yep, so anything you want to kind of draw in during the meditation, just choose that kind of color. Why does the feed keep jumping? I think it's because new comments come in, and it just jumps back to the top as I'm trying to read. Okay. So Misty said, and she knows this is about meditation. However, if any messages do come through to us, how can we limit how many spirits talk to us? So hopefully that kind of answered your question. If we're just starting out, can we limit who we communicate with, or just have a few loved ones and our spirit guides so we are not overwhelmed? Yeah, so you, just having talked to you and working with you some in the membership, I know that you probably have a very open crown chakra. So trying that technique of just tuning it down and working with the crown could help you. And again, just asking the voices, like, what do you need? And see what they respond. Sometimes they just want you to like acknowledge them, and then they'll sort of tune down a little bit or turn it down a little bit. Let's see here. Yeah, Mary says she's a rocker and a swayer. You can already see naturally, that movement works for you. So yeah, try that. And I would try that intuitive movement. Like just even put on some like very music that you just want to move to, and then just let your body guide you and see what happens. Okay. Let's see. Evie says she loves the feeling of meditation. Yep, it does feel good when you kind of find the one that works for you. Tommy said, how many chakras are there? 7 commonly known, but about 12. Yeah. So some people say 109 so 108 in the body and one outside of the body. There's so many different systems. The main ones are the main 7, and then there are people add on 5 that are outside of the body as well. Those tend to be in more like Eastern practices. It really is all about finding the system that works for you. Again, it's an energetic system, and to find one that resonates with you is the right choice. I teach 7 just because that's the system that I think is most accessible for people in the beginning, and then kind of expanding out if you want and exploring more like those 5, like I said, outside of the body. When people say there are 108, they usually mean the minor ones. So there's ones like in the hands and the arms, but all of this is actually like an extension of the heart. And so like anything in the legs and the feet is really just an extension of the root. So we do have multiple ones, but usually we can cover the minor ones just by working with the major ones. And then Danielle said, learning that there is much more than one kind of meditation helps so much. I'm so glad. That's why when I saw everybody's comments to that question I asked about meditation, I was like, I really want people to know, yeah, there's more than one form. We think that there's just this one form, and then when we can't do it, or we think we don't do it well, and we think the whole thing doesn't work for us. Yeah, she said, makes me think that maybe when I try that one form I'm stuck on is an opening for the spirits. Yeah, see, it could be. Maybe that form is just opening you up too much. So try something different. Maybe the walking meditation, something where maybe you won't be as open and receptive to them. Diane says, thank you. Dialing it down sounds real interesting. While doing the ancestral work is when everyone wants to talk to me. Yeah, and see, since we've been doing ancestral work in our membership, Diane is in the membership with us. And yes, we are definitely opening ourselves up to the communication and conversation. So it wouldn't surprise me if you're receiving more than usual. So just try to dial it down. Like I said, I like having it open most of the time, but if I'm meditating, obviously I don't want to be talked to or get the messages. So just try that and see if that works. And then we are going to work through, in our membership, we work through all of our chakras, and we will get to the crown as well. And then Evie said, she loves when she meditates, she usually has an out-of-body experience. Yeah, that's really great. That can definitely be a benefit of it. Okay, so I think I got everybody's comments here and questions. So if you're still here with me, thanks so much for sticking around. This was a long episode, but I hope that it was helpful, and I hope that even though we're only able to answer the questions that I had or the ones here in the feed, I hope that it helped you in some ways, maybe even just listening to the answers of the questions that other people asked. Okay, so if you want, you can always continue to drop comments in there. I'll go back in tonight and I'll answer anything that I didn't get to in the video. And if you're watching this in replay, then you can leave me questions here too, and I'll answer them. And then Danielle said, where can I find info on the membership? I think you're on my list. If not, I will add you. But our membership is opening up in about a month. So the end of February is where I'm going to start coming down the list. And I will offer spots to anybody on the list first before we open it up, to the public at large. And so we take in kind of a limited number of people each round. And so in about a month, we'll kind of give all the information, but it's a shadow work and an energy work membership. And it's a lot of fun. There's some people here in the live who are in it, and we're doing some really good work together. All right, until next time, blessed be. I'll see you next time. Take care.